Hi, everyone, and welcome to Spirit Focus with Robert Painley. We're going live tonight on our own accord. So there's a variety of people I want to thank for teaching me and my husband, Mark, how to fish a little bit here. So first of all, so for Terry, for Deb, for Ruth, thank you so much for teaching two aging boomers how to figure out this little bit of technology and getting us up and operational. So I really appreciate that. It's amazing the love and support that we have received from so many people here at Enlightened World Network, and I just want to thank them for all the work that they're doing on our behalf and others to try and bring our messages and our stories to light. So number one, there's also some people I want to thank before we start the show tonight. Rosie Shapiro, I want to thank you. One of the hauntings that we're going to be talking about, I consulted with Rosie on, and she was very helpful in helping me. So thank you, Rosie. I do appreciate that. We'll get to that in a little bit. And one other person, to my husband, Mark Bianchi. Mark has done all of the difficult, challenging work and working with Deb for 4 hours yesterday and more today, trying to get the technology up and running for us. So I think we're good to go. I think we're recording. I think we're live. And we'll see in a little bit here, in an hour, whether I recorded anything. So thank you all for your patience and your support in getting this and making this happen. So a couple of highlights before we start and a couple of announcements. One, my husband, Mark Bianchi, actually has his first show tomorrow. So Mindful Money Matters is starting tomorrow with Mark Bianchi. He will be on at noon Eastern Standard Time. You can catch Mark's show, and Mark is going to be talking more about the financial and how those stresses from the finances and what we do with our money has an impact on our spirituality, on our lives, and those impacts. So Mark has started a second chapter, it's not a second chapter two, but a chapter two, as far as getting people to understand how to put their life into perspective a little bit more as it relates to their money matters. So check out his show tomorrow at noon. And also for Rosie Shapiro. Rosie, thank you so much again for the help and guidance. Rosie's story is going to be story number 3 tonight when we finally get there. But we talked a little bit about charitable giving last week. And I don't know if it resonated with a lot of people, but I hope you came away from that show learning something about maybe yourself or other people or what it takes to make that commitment to give and the response that we get in return for that giving. So Rosie has a show coming up, actually an event coming up with a gentleman by the name of Chris Perry. And her show is called Our Body is Our Temple. And it's going to be with Chris Perry, and she's featuring Chris Perry on that show. And it's really going to be looking at your body and looking at how we treat our body and what we do with our body and how that relates to our spirituality and keeping those two aspects of our lives balanced for ourselves. So it's going to be a great show. It's going to be, I think it's at 7 o'clock on August. I'm sorry. What month are we in? It's going to be on August 2nd. At 7 p.m. Please check out rosieshapiro.com and you'll be able to get tickets to her event. And so that'll be very nice. So those public service announcements out of the way. Let's get to tonight's show. So tonight I wanted to go kind of back to the future, as it were. So I started this show a while ago, almost 3 months ago now, on Robert's Haunted Pajama Party. So tonight you'll notice a little bit more professional with a logo up here and a different background. I'm not seated. I'm not in my pajamas at the moment. And so and I don't have a drink. I don't have a cocktail tonight on this show. So I do want to go back. I started talking a lot about different types of religions or different types, or even paganism and charitable giving and some other topics on the show. But I actually wanted to go back to hauntings for a reason. It just seems of late, in the last week and a half, 9 days, I have had 4 hauntings that I've had to go to. And there are some correlations between them. There are some interesting things here that I think are great to talk about. and lessons to be learned. So I want to kind of go through those, and always remember that when I talk about hauntings, I'm talking about them basically from a third person perspective, because while I'm talking about the hauntings themselves, I'm talking about these hauntings from how I view them. So how I go into a home or a business or on land that I go to when people are having an issue or problems there. And I look toward trying to figure out what it is and what's there. So usually I'm the solution to a problem. You know, somebody calls me when they're having an issue. So I'm not having to live through the entire process of what these people have lived through, sometimes for weeks, sometimes for months, sometimes for years on what they've gone through. So I just want you to understand that, again, a lot of this is third person because I can't tell you how these people feel, what they're going through, the terror, the fear, the anxiety, how it affects their life, how it affects multiple facets of their life, in between family members and just by themselves. So next week's show, I wanted to use this as a kind of a primer, if you would, because I'm going to have someone here who experienced a haunting next week in their home for years, and how it affected them personally, how it affected their interaction with their family. And I will tell you right now, before that happens, while I will go live with that show next week, we're going to actually pre-record that show because this gentleman does not want to be known publicly. For fear of ridicule, for fear of any, of not being believed, of having someone reach out to him via social media and not understand everything that he's gone through. So I do want to put that out there so that you understand that some of the things that I do talk about have a huge impact on people's lives, personally, professionally, and the stigma that goes with it. Part of the process for Robert's Haunted Pajama Party was to bring some of these issues to light. And now I want to try not so much to maybe normalize that process, but to let people know that there are real people that you work with, colleagues and things of this nature, that deal with these issues all the time. So please don't judge people when they feel that they have an issue going on. I know most of the viewers of this type of a program would not have an issue with ghosts or things of this nature because that may be in the belief system. But there are a lot of people out there who, think that ghosts aren't real, or the spirit isn't real, or that God doesn't exist, and all these things. And I'm not here to change their mind. That's not my purpose. My purpose here is to kind of have a discussion about real life issues that I go to, and you get to hear from one of my clients who had a firsthand experience with this and how it changed their life to have these issues resolved in their home. Some people have multiple issues and multiple occurrences, but understand that if you have some type of light within you, you're a light worker, or you're an empath or something of this nature, where you have kind of a different vibration about you, you are going to continue to attract this type of energy all your life. So while I may come and help solve a particular problem, you have to learn how to deal with these types of issues, and because they're not going to stop. And quite frankly, once you start to get involved with different types of issues, they may increase, because once spirit understands that you have this gift, you understand what you're supposed to do with it, that you are helping other spirits or even people on this plane, spirits on this plane, that you have this ability to maybe grow in this regard. So don't take that as a curse. I know I told you a long time ago that I looked at this as a curse for a long time before I looked at it as a gift and being able to actually help people. It wasn't until I actually was able to help other people that I realized how to kind of look at this as more of a wonderful gift from God to help other people deal with the issues and problems in their life. Again, so while I do tarot card readings and mediumship readings and healings and all kinds of different types of aspects in regard to spirituality and life coaching, the hauntings are something that are a passion of mine, only because I had them my entire life. And once I was able to move past it, how it changed my life for the better. So we're going to get into the first story here. And excuse me, because there's 4 stories tonight, and I will not remember all the details. I barely remember my my PIN code when I go to the grocery store to get my groceries. So I won't remember all the details of the stories. I did want to write some of them down and go through some of them with you so that you have a good idea of some of the things that I've dealt with. And this, again, this is all in South Florida, all in the last week of issues that I've had, and they're all staggeringly different in their scope and what they did and how they felt to the people who were dealing with these hauntings. So I want to get into the first one, and the first haunting I want to talk to is about demons in the house. And people who have watched my show before and watched Robert's Haunted Pajama Party, one of the things that I talked about was how I'm able to, if I'm going to be scared or run into something that may be harmful or something that I have to take special protection against, they usually show me what that is in advance so that I am not going to be afraid of it, not thrown off my game of what I have to do to get rid of whatever this happens to be. So they're very, very good about showing me this type of thing. So I did get a call this would be about 8 days ago. Actually, the call came before, but I did this about 8 days ago. When the call came in, it was from someone who was recommended to me. And I get a lot of recommendations. There are a lot of light workers down here in South Florida who are very, very good at what they do. But I'm known for dealing with this type of work here. So I got a call to help a family. And what was going on is they just felt a presence in the home. And they wouldn't give me any more detail than that. I didn't know anything about them. Quite frankly, they only gave me their first names, and they would only give me their address the day of. I think they were very concerned that they had and worked with other mediums and other psychics before and weren't getting answers, or the problem wasn't being resolved for whatever reason. So again, there's nothing about them or this could have changed. I don't know all the circumstances. All I know is how I jumped into the situation. So I followed the directions, and the night before, I'm going to backtrack, the night before, so I told you I do see these things. So I went to bed. While I was sleeping, I had that stuff comes to me in my dream state, because so I'm not as afraid of it. I think a lot of times, even though it will wake me up sometimes if it's scary. And this one was strange because I was all of a sudden in someone's home. I didn't know whose house or where I was. I was walking into the front door. And as I walked into the front door, I walked through the front door, and I know that there was a hallway that I had to walk down. And on the right-hand side, there was going to be a bedroom. And when I look into this bedroom, I could see a bed. I could see a window to the right of the bed, because I'm seeing it kind of in the darkness. But when I looked toward the window, there was a figure of, it's hard to describe this figure, but if you can imagine, it looked somewhat human. There were arms and legs, but it was, all I saw was kind of like in shadow form. There wasn't a whole lot of detail about it. The only detail that I saw were two big yellow eyes with kind of black spots on them, almost either cat-like or snake-like, but just yellow, glowing yellow, and very disconcerting. But it was kind of sitting on the windowsill with like one leg up higher than the other leg kind of touching the ground, and just staring at me. And then I woke up, and that's all I received. So what was funny is, I get the address the next morning, and I go out to the client's house, and I get there, and the first thing I did, and normally, again, I would walk into somebody's house, introduce myself, and say a little bit about myself, ask if they know what I do and how I do what I do, and then start to kind of maybe walk around the house a little bit, get a feel for the energy, and then protect them, protect myself, and then start my work. In this case, I walked through the door and introduced ourselves very quickly with pleasantries, and then started to say, you have a hallway here, and there's a bedroom at the end with a bed and a window right next to the bed. And they said, yes. So I said, I'm good. I know where to go. And I just walked down the hallway, and I opened the door, and sure enough, there was the bed, the window that I saw in the dream the night before. So I knew what it was and where it was, and that I was in the right house. So what I decided to do at that point was bring the couple, this married couple to the living room, and we kind of sat down and started to chat. And I said, look, here's what I saw in my dream. This is what's going on. And she said, that's exactly what I've seen. Now, the husband never saw it, but she had. And she said, that's exactly what I'm seeing. And she's seen it multiple times in the house. What brought their attention that they had something really negative in this house was they would smell feces from time to time in the house, particularly with her. It was happened in the house all the time, but when she would get into the car, she would smell it in the car. With him, it didn't really travel with him, but when they were in the house together, he too would smell it. So they both smelled this smell. So again, that first initial phone call, it was all about trying to figure out, could this, again, I like to go through the rational part of it. Is this something that is, did something die in the closet, or did something, had they had mice in the attic or something, anything that I could think of that might cause this to occur? And they said no, that they had exterminators there, that they'd had the house checked out. And it wasn't constant, it wasn't all the time. It just would just kind of flare up from time to time, particularly when they were doing the charitable work that they were doing. So anyway, so I told her, she told me that she saw this being, and she saw it kind of walking down the hall. And then while we were having this conversation, a young girl appeared and kind of walking down the hall. And this was actually a guardian angel for them. She did not feel this. She only sensed that there was a young girl in the house. So my just feelings, again, when I start to open up, I start to figure out what things are going on and trying to get validations for that so that I know that I'm on the right track. So what I decided to do was, so we talked about the little girl, we talked about what this was, and then I kind of got up from where I was. I walked through the kitchen, and all of the cabinets in the kitchen were open up. She was terrified of the kitchen, the woman of the couple that were living there. And she was terrified of the kitchen because she felt that there was something there. The good thing about the kitchen is they gave me a vision about a very long table that was there, and a bunch of women, all women, feasting and having all this wonderful food and conversation and all this kind of lovely vision. And the woman who lived there was featured in this vision as serving everyone around this table with food. So I told her that she could go ahead and close the covers, that this was actually her family. Her family wanted her to cook, wanted her to hold these family traditions together. That was the purpose for them being there. And she felt their presence, although it frightened her, it was actually nothing to be frightened of. She thought it was still what she was seeing on the other side of the house. So these women were extremely impactful for her. There were grandparents and family members, aunts, uncles, mother, and all with the same message that the family history was kind of being lost to transition from where they grew up in different parts of the Caribbean and in this country. And that was just kind of a beautiful message for her because she felt that, but there were some family issues in the family dynamic that was associated with that. But she understood the message and understood what she had to do, had felt that feeling for a long time. And so this was kind of confirmation for her of what to do. So now getting back to the lovely yellow-eyed spirit, we'll call this. Now, usually when I encounter something that's demonic, shall we say, or just nothing that has really ever been born, as we're going to say, on this plane, they have a different energy. And it's a really low vibration. And this entity I felt came from the Middle East. And so I asked them if there was a Middle East connection with this home. And strangely enough, there was. They were renting the house, came to find out, and the gentleman who owned the home was from the Middle East. And I felt that he had been involved in a roundabout way, again, for privacy's sake, I'm going to keep it very general, but in a roundabout way with death in one of these countries. And the death that was associated with him was very palpable. And this was attached to him. And when he bought this house and lived in this house for a while, this kind of stayed, because before these people rented it, there was another family of Middle Eastern people who rented this house from the Shellerman. and it stayed. It liked that energy. It kind of understood the people that lived there and liked that energy. And now when that energy moved out and this other energy moved in, and these two people who bought, who are renting the home now, are light workers of sort, do feel things. They're from an area of the world where it's very common to have a very close connection with the spirit world. And so they were very attuned to differences in the house and different energy. And this was something that they didn't know what to do with, couldn't combat it, tried to do saging in the house and other things else. This one really needed to have knowledge about what it was. And I usually don't ever give a name to it. I would now, because giving a name to something gives it power. And I just look at it as an entity that needs to go. And so what happened at that point is I really had to do a ceremony to remove this from a house, kind of what the Catholic Church may call, some type of an exorcism of sorts. I don't like to do those on people and won't do them on people, but I will do that on spaces. And to do what I need to do, and was told exactly, as I usually am, what needed to be done to rid this space of this entity. And that's what I did. And at one point, we'll go into maybe the specifics of what that is. But again, that's different for every haunting I go to, because I'm told every haunting is different. Every entity is different that I have to work with. So the process of what needs to happen changes. And we'll get into more of those stories here in a little bit. But what you need to realize about this story is actually the fact that you shouldn't be totally, completely afraid of everything that's happening. Now, they saw what was there. It did frighten them, and I could understand why. It wasn't a pleasant feeling. I have encountered this type of entity before, so it's not something that would scare me. But I have a healthy respect for it as well, because it can do some damage. And it was causing them to have this foul odor in the house. They felt like their, let's say, luck had changed on what was happening in their life. They just didn't feel good about it. They felt it was causing trouble and problems in the marriage. It was just being incredibly mischievous. Now, it wasn't a very old entity. Had it been so, it could have caused a lot more havoc than it did. But it was more mischievous than it was dangerous. So it was something that once it was gone, was very positive to have out of the house. And I don't like to read personal texts and things like that nature, but let's just suffice to say that they contacted me the next day, and that experience again changed their life. They felt that the house was lighter. They weren't seeing things anymore. The knocking had stopped in the house. The smell was gone, and it hasn't returned. So again, it's been a week. Sometimes it's possible that things can return. But right now, fingers crossed, we're good. Things are good and happy in the home. This had gone on for months before they were in contact with me. And now it's good. So I'm very, very happy and pleased that they have found peace and can continue on to do the good charitable work that they do in helping their country with their charity and the goods that they do. At some point, we may have them on the show if they ever want to talk about that and to promote the charity, again, with that aspect of charitable giving that we talked about last week. But I think it was something, again, don't be afraid of this. Learn how to seek help. Their background for them made it very easy for them to understand that help is available. There is help out there. Things can change. These types of entities can be worked with. So all of those things are very helpful. But in this country, we tend to have a mindset that we're going to be teased or ridiculed, and some of that's very real. Hence, what's going to happen next week on the show, right? With somebody who doesn't want to be identified for very valid reasons. For themselves personally, and I would never put anybody in that circumstance where they felt that they, would hurt their life or hinder their life in any way. But I do think that the story itself is important, so that people understand how it can directly impact your life when you have negative encounters with spirit. So again, that's one of the things I want to touch on. So know that there's always help out there. There are many light workers who can help you. I know that Rosie does this. I know that Terry Angel and I have gone places together to do this kind of work. So there are people out there who do this. So please seek help if you need it. Don't live in fear. Don't live with the anxiety. Don't think that you're crazy, because a lot of people do feel that way, that what they're seeing can't be real. And while it does exist that you may, obviously there are illnesses out there that could create maybe hallucinations, or drugs that could cause hallucinations or things of this nature. But sometimes it's real. And in the times where it is real, please seek the help of someone who can really make your life or have a positive impact on your life. Okay. So that's story one. So I'm going to take a drink of water here and get into another story. Normally I have a guest. Today I'm my own guest. So I've got a lot of talking to do. So, oh, the one thing I did want to mention on that story too is one of the things that I had to tell them when I left there was about PTSD. Understand that when you have any type of situation that has caused you trauma, PTSD is usually associated with veterans coming back from war, or people who have suffered some type of physical or mental abuse of some nature. This too, dealing with this type of trauma caused by the spirit world can create a situation for you where you do have and suffer from PTSD. So understand that it's real. Get the help that you need if you do go through this process. I'm very good about telling people that this could be a problem, but what happens with PTSD when I work with these clients is that they may call me the next day because they heard something creak in the house, and they do freak out a little bit. They think it's back, or they think that it's back and it's not gone. So we have to kind of deprogram a little bit and go backwards. And I ask them to educate themselves on PTSD so that they can feel a little bit better about themselves, and that they're back in control of the situation, because there's nothing worse in this world than feeling you're out of control of yourself, of your circumstances and your life. And so once this happens, please, if you need that help, do seek out the help that you need, because it is very important for your mental health that you get your life back on track. I'm very good because usually every time I do a haunting like this, there's always a section at the end of it where we talk about life course and how they're off their life course, what they need to do, and suggestions about how to get back on their proper road. So if you have those questions, if you talk to a medium, ask those questions, ask for those specific answers to see if they can give you those answers of what you need to do to get yourself set back on the proper course. Okay. I'll leave it there. So the next one is interesting because with this one, we have a roommate situation. Two females who have been rooming together for a short time, maybe about 8 months or so. So they haven't been living together for a while. They've been friends before, and they moved in together to save expenses. And when they moved in together, they're on different schedules. So one person is working, and they're in we're going to say kind of again, I apologize, but I have to be a little bit nebulous. I'm sure some of these people may be watching this program, if not live, then at some point. And I want to be respectful of both the people that I do readings for and not give out too much detail so they're identifiable, as well as the spirits who were very kind that I could work with them and be respectful of their life as well and their soul's journey. So I've tried to be a little bit vague. If you have questions, actually, if you have questions, what I'll do is I'm going to pull up Facebook right now. And if you have questions, please feel free to submit them, and I will look at them and we'll go ahead and review those. So I do have it up. But for this story, what we're going to talk about is with these two roommates, how spirits can coexist in spaces together, sometimes known to one another, sometimes unknown to one another. In this particular case, one of the roommates is, I'll put it generally speaking, in a public capacity, generally speaking, in law enforcement of some sort. So this female started to feel something. They felt something in the house. They weren't sure what it was. And I will go so far as to say that another one of them is gifted in this house. And so they knew something was going on. They felt something, but they really couldn't identify what it was. They knew that the dogs were going a little crazy with and seeing things and acting strangely in the house. One of the roommates was seeing something that was unusual and not understanding what it was, kind of like shadows moving and not understanding what it was. But it was a little bit disconcerting enough that they asked me to come to their home. So I did, absolutely. That's what I did. So uh, what happened was I walked into the house and I started to feel right away that, again, when I go in, I sense negative energy, positive energy, neutral energy. And after that, whether it's male, masculine, feminine, or even angelic or demonic or whatever it happens to be, what kind of sense I get for the energy that's in the house. And in this instance, there was a female presence in the house. So again, it's trying to separate the energy from the two females that actually live there on this plane, and this other energy that I wasn't sure about. So I was starting to get descriptive nature of who this was and asked them if they knew someone that kind of fit the description that I was given. And the answer was no. So what I did at this point was to go walk into that woman's bedroom. And right away, I could tell whatever this energy was emanating from a closet that was up by the headboard of the bed. And it was an energy that was trying to pull itself away, because when I go, first of all, most spirits know, they know what's going on in your home. And when I get a phone call, the spirits already know I'm coming and they know what I'm coming to do. So sometimes they will try and pull their energy back as far as possible so that I can't find them or can't sense them. They're not successful most of the time. I would say 99% of the time they're not successful doing that. So I'm able to kind of tap into where that energy is. And what happened here is that there was this young lady was involved in a variety of addictive behaviors, we'll say, and also in trouble with the police. And she was killed here in Fort Lauderdale, and it was behind a series of buildings that they showed me. And there were 6 cop cars there that I could see clearly. And this woman was the only female of all these law enforcement people and related people who were on the scene. And this spirit attached herself. She didn't want to go. She was afraid of what was going to happen to her. And so she kind of attached herself to this female roommate. And so when I got to the house, she kind of taken up, and because she worked a night shift and slept all day, the room was perpetually dark. And this spirit was just kind of annoying. I was like, I'm doing this with my hands, but you can't see. I'm just kind of sticking it to her and annoying her because she was law enforcement. She had issues with law enforcement before. It was just gave her a little bit of pleasure to needle her in some ways and to do and to make her life a little challenging. And she did it maliciously, and it wasn't pleasant, and she needed to go. So that was my job. So going there and taking care of that situation. Again, we'll have a show about how I do what I do, maybe what I did in the circumstance. But it was time for her to go, and there was a crossing obviously involved. You can see over my shoulder here. This is sometimes a lot of what I see, which is why it's in this logo. Sometimes a lot more clearly than that. Sometimes it's just like this. But this one, really, I got no information about family or friends or anything about that. Sometimes I do. We'll get to a story where that happened. But in this particular instance, it was very neutral. There was nothing there for me to kind of get a name, nothing. She was and she was afraid that, I'll put it this way, she gave me some information that she told me not to say to the police, to the police officer, law enforcement person, and because she didn't want to be known. She did not want to have this experience conflated with her life, whether or not she felt it was going to get back to her family in some way or whatever happened to be. She did not want to be known in this way. And she was very fearful of that and was very, straightforward with me that that's not going to happen. She's not going to allow me to go forward. So again, being respectful of her soul, her journey, I won't do it here, and I didn't do it then. And she was crossed. after we got rid of the negative and energy in this home, and she was a negative energy. I mean, she wasn't a positive energy or influence in her life. So I I hate to say negative, but I kind of use it as the the opposite of positive. Um, but I went to the other roommate's room, and what was funny about this room is she had so much protective energy around her. And I looked into the room, and there's a dog gate up, so I didn't really walk into the room at first. And so I just kind of stood in front of there, and there was a little kind of lovely old lady, maybe 80ish or so. I couldn't, but she was stooped over and kind of just shuffling from one end of the bed to the other end of the bed and back around the bed. And she kept going back and forth around the bed. And I'm watching her just shuffle back and forth around the bed. And I'm like, I sort of told her about her grandmother. This is her grandmother. And she said, "Yeah, absolutely, she sees her as well. And that's how she sees her, is in this way, moving around the bed. And that was protective energy too, so that she wouldn't be bothered by what was in the other bedroom. Also in the corner was an older gentleman, which was this woman's husband, who was tall, thin, and bald hair, but very, very quiet, standing in the background. Didn't really say anything, didn't have anything to say. And so I talked a little bit about the gentleman's personality, and she said, "No, this is all right about these two individuals." The interesting one with this too was when it was in my prayerful state the night before because when I get into prayer at night, I always do it before I go to see clients the next morning to tell spirit that it's okay to contact me, to get into that mental state, to have them come to me in my dream state. So I was having visions, and two of them came, actually one this night came forward, and it was of someone who was dressed in a very particular and peculiar manner. I think most people would say that. I'm not going to go into detail here because I feel it may be disrespectful to the spirit, or they may feel that I'm being somewhat either judgmental or condescending or something of that nature, and that's not why I'm doing it. So this outfit was, let's say, very, very unique in appearance, and so it showed me a particular person doing in this outfit by a creek, standing in a particular area. And it was an unusual vision. I'll just say that. In all my time on this planet, I've never seen that vision. Of somebody dressed like this in a very peculiar manner doing this. I told her, I said, "Look, I had a weird dream last night. I think it's for you." But this, and explained the outfit, explained what this individual was doing. And she said, "I know that outfit. I know exactly who that is." And so this individual was not being remembered. And this female is in her own right, gifted, lovely, a free spirit, and just a wonderful human being. And the spirit was akin to this like a kind of a soul connection between these two, from this uncle to this niece, and was around her all the time, protecting her. And he had passed before she was born, but always watched over her, and was still around now. And so the only thing that he asked was, well, he told me that he wasn't being remembered by the family, and then she told me that the family was actually trying to erase the memory. They didn't like this gentleman's lifestyle or who he was, or maybe things that he did in life, and we're trying kind of in the family to do things not to remember. And he wanted to be remembered, and asked her to please get a picture of him and put it in her room, so that, because this is a spirit guide for her and somebody that's going to watch over her. So I just think it was a lovely thing to do for him. And then finally, the last one, I'm going to be very specific with this because it's unusual. So while I'm standing there, this gentleman with a big mouthful of teeth and big smile came through, and just phenomenal energy. And I'm like, how Louis Armstrong? Who is Louis Armstrong? Because I'm seeing Louis Armstrong. And she started laughing, and she said that she had an uncle who looked exactly like Louis Armstrong, and everybody commented on that his entire life. And the funny thing about him is that smile hid so much kind of like heartache and depression, but he hid it his entire life with that smile, which on a lot of occasions was very fake. And so his heart too needed to be healed a little bit. And I just kind of asked her to send prayer to this gentleman and to continue to pray for him for the uplifting of his soul, because he felt that he just was too not somebody who was being remembered. He was just remembered for that aspect of him, but not kind of all the heartache that he went through, and just to elevate his soul. So again, I think one of the things I'd love to tell, and all of these spirits were around her, trying to kind of protect her from that other nasty energy that was out there in the other bedroom. So this is kind of how these spirits worked in tandem a little bit to do protection on one while this other entity was in the house. So it was amazing, lovely, fantastic, and just wonderful messages for the one roommate, and just a relief to get rid of something that was causing some pain points in the other roommate's life. So it was a phenomenal reading and a phenomenal haunting and cleansing of a home. So thank you very much for allowing me to come into your house and work with your relatives and connect with them. They were wonderful people, and it was a pleasure to work with them and with you. So let me see before we move on here if there's any questions here that I have. So, hi Wendy, how are you? Becky, how are you? John, nice to see you. Who else? Thank you so much. So thanks for watching. So another aspect of things that I want to talk about, we're kind of running even short on time because I really went into details on those. So I'll go a little bit, I'll move a little bit faster because there are a couple here that I really want to talk about. One of them is I went to a house last week for a couple of people who, I guess I'll just say sisters who were together, and this is the story that Rosie Shapiro helped me on, and it was because I had seen these clients before to do some other work, and they're lovely souls, and I enjoy their company so much, and they're very faithful and prayerful people. And one of the things that happened in their house was they had a portal, and this portal was bringing in negative and positive energy because, again, it's a portal. It doesn't discriminate against good or bad. It just is a pathway, and it was drawn to their light. So they didn't. It's nothing that they did on purpose. Nothing that they can control. It just is. A lot of that has to do with landlines. A lot of it has to do with how spiritual activity moves, or just activity in general. But these can be created any place. And this was a room of prayer where this portal was created or appeared, and they were being bothered. And I'm not going to get into a lot of details here because a lot of it can be challenging. But the point of there is a little bit of a point to the story. One, that it's possible to close portals. So if they are there, that they need to be dealt with. They do need to be closed if they're open, because you can't, like I said, you can't get a lot of negative and positive energy that flows through there. If it was all positive, that would be great, but that's not the case. So Rosie was very good about giving me her advice because she saw where this was and told me where to go, and a little bit of how she would have kind of maybe dealt with the situation were she there. So I really appreciate her advice. And I think that's the thing I really want to take away from the story as well, is that as light workers, one of the responsibilities that we have to one another is to be good to one another. I think sometimes that there is sometimes jealousy and maybe envy and all these negative emotions, sometimes not with everybody. I'm being very general, but I really want people to understand that we should be there to help one another. We really need to be there to, if you need advice or if you need some help in some way, that there are people there that can help you. And I really want other light workers to work in tandem with another to help them, to help us all grow. I didn't come out of the womb like this. It took me a while to get into my spirit again. I turned off my gift for a long time and then got back into it. I'm very blessed with the gift that I have. Other people were all on different spiritual journeys. Don't think that because you don't do something that somebody else does, that you're not good at what you do, or that you don't have a gift, or that you shouldn't share your gift. So please make sure I'm kind of imploring light workers out there to help others, to raise others, to do those things that are beneficial to help us all. Because I can't do this work by myself, or Rosie or Terry or Deb or anybody else who does this work. Can't do it alone. There's so many people that are needed, and our skill set needs to grow and stay strong. So help one another, please. I appreciate all the help. I've had guests on the show, Tiffany and Chris and Terry, who ran, was in the background, running things in the background for me when we first did Robert's Kind of Pajama Party and afterwards, and so many others that I've relied on for my own help, my own growth. And I love them and I appreciate them for all their help that they have done and given me. And it's my job to give that back. And it's all of our responsibility, please. Again, I'm imploring you to give of your time, give of yourself to help bring others up, to help them and their gift rise, because it's important. And you would probably not be in their life if it wasn't your job or your responsibility to help them in some way. So please take that responsibility to heart. And I make it a little bit of a mission of mine where I can and how I can, which is why I have other light workers on the show to showcase what they do different from myself, because they may do things differently and they're still able to help people with their issues. So please do everything that you can to support one another and be good to one another out there if you have a gift. And even if you don't, just be kind. That helps a lot too. Okay. So the specifics about the portal, well, that was a tangent. About the portal, I go on those a lot. But about the portal itself, it needed to be sewn up. So depending on the type of entities and things that are in the home, do your research, ask for help, ask for guidance. Again, I thank you, Rosie, for your advice and your insight, and to the women who live in this home for explaining what you were experiencing, because it also helps your detail, helps the light worker understand what we need to do, how we need to do it, and may provide some insight for us. So please, if you have something in your home and you don't know what it is, don't just tell a light worker, I don't know what this is, please help me. Think about it. Think about what it is. The more information we have, the better we can do our jobs. Okay, so just a food for thought out there. And it looks like, Becky, I think you had a question. How do you help spirit cross over? Well, I'm going to give you a kind of a real cursory method, okay? I have a lot of ritual. I grew up in the Catholic faith. I was an altar boy for many, many years. And so I do use a lot of my Catholicism in what I do to cross. I also lived in Japan, so there are elements of Shintoism. There are elements of Native American culture that I bring in with ancestor crossing. There are elements of other aspects of spirituality that I do tap into depending on the entities that I'm working with. So it's not a one-size-fits-all aspect. So normally, I will be very, very broad and very, very general, that the purity of your intent, of what you're attempting to do, and what you try and what you're wanting to do is very important. The cautionary tale here is when I go to a home, I don't want to cross everybody over, right? There may be some spirit guides there that are visiting, that are in the home, that are good for, that would go more for a banishment, that are good, that are supposed to be there. I don't want to do a one size fits all. So hopefully you have enough of a gift where you know who you're working with, the entity that you're working with, the type of entity that you're working with, because that's all very helpful. Again, I'm told what to do, and I've never had a similar crossing ever with what I've done. They've all been a little bit different. But the purity of your intent goes a long way. When I do a crossing, one of the things that I always do is, like, I may not know all the appropriate words. I may know, I'm just, a guy who has this gift, who, is trying to utilize God, the angels, and my spirit guides, and a variety of other people that I call into helping with these crossings. And also sometimes I'll use my mom to help reach out and cross, or other people, other spirits that I've worked with who have had maybe similar circumstances that they identify with. So that they can help them cross, because they feel that energy, they feel that familiarity with people, particularly if it's somebody that I may know that their mother had crossed, and I would ask their mother or their father or a sister or a brother or somebody to come through, because they will know that energy, they'll feel that energy, and will go much more easily. It'll be an easier crossing for them. There are some times where I'm working with spirits who don't want to go, or don't think that they're going to a very good place, and that's called a banishment. And sometimes I just have to take those souls and, against kind of their own will, get them to where they need to be. And I kind of look at that as the saloon treatment, where, they used to take up, when you watch an old Western, and they kind of take those guys and they throw them through the plate glass window or out the saloon doors. So you can go easily, you can go a little bit more in a more challenging manner. But I do try and, let's say that, if I know that they need to be crossed over, that they need to continue on their spiritual journey, I do what is necessary to get them there. I do like to talk to them ahead of time, if I can, and connect with them to find out what the reason is that they didn't cross. A lot of times, again, it has to do with they were very religious in life, and they didn't feel that they were good enough that they're not going to go to a good place when they cross. So they fear going to the light, or they were taken suddenly and didn't know perhaps that they were actually dead or stuck, or know that they're stuck and don't know how to move. And that's the case that we're going to talk about now. So I hope that answered your question, Becky. If you have more, just feel free to email me. I'll give you any insight. And if you have specifics that you want to know about, you're working with somebody, or you need help in that regard, please let me know. I'll be happy to help you. But this also falls into this case. So I was at a haunting yesterday, and I've only got a few minutes to talk about it. But in this haunting, a female moved into a home, a new apartment. And it's a lovely apartment, lots of lights, it's a great space. But what was funny about the space is that and there were more issues for my being there, and this wasn't told to me ahead of time. She didn't feel anything in the house, but when I got there, I walked into the master bedroom, and I saw this kind of a mist on the master bedroom by a light, a lampshade that was there. There was a little bit of mist forming, and I was told to look in the mirror. Okay, I'll look in the mirror. So I walked to the other side of the room, and I looked into a mirror, and I could see through the mirror that there was a young man standing there. So I couldn't see him when I was looking that direction, but through the mirror, I could see who this was. I asked her to turn off the lights. I could see more clearly who this was. And then all of a sudden, this entity, this young male, appeared in the hallway that led to the master bedroom. And I'm standing there, and we're just kind of looking at one another, and I'm trying to figure out why he's there. And I told her, hey, so this is what I'm seeing. And she said, 2 nights ago, I saw a young man in this house. It was a full apparition. And she said, I could see him so clearly. And I said, well, do you know who Bobby Sherman is? And she's younger, I'm old. And so she had no idea who this was. So I'm there on my phone. I pull up Bobby Sherman. I said, here's the picture. And she said, that's who I see. She said that, the hair is back, taller on the head, kind of like my receding hairline, up here. And I said, this is who I see. And I said, this is exactly who this is. I said that this young man is telling me that he died in the 1970s. He was driving down 95. He lived in the Northeast. He was driving down I-95, and he fell asleep at the wheel, went off of the road, and was killed in a car accident that happened because he fell asleep at the wheel. He did not want to leave this plane because he wanted to spend time with his then girlfriend, which was a huge connection and huge amount of love, and refused to, kind of just held back and wanted to be with her and resisted crossing. He then spent the next, 1970, now it's 50 years, he spent all of this time with her, watched her life, watched her children grow up. And what he's told me was that she had recently passed, and she crossed immediately. And now he was stuck because she passed and was there for her crossing, but he couldn't go. he didn't know what to do. He'd been, been in that limbo state for quite a while. He knew that he was in that limbo state, but he didn't know what to do now and wanted to be there. So this is specific to Becky's question. It's like, I just knew that what I had to do was call her forth, bring her energy, because he would feel her energy, and it would be a very, very easy crossing for him because he would know that energy instinctively. And so I was started my ceremony to do this lovely crossing, and it happened like that. As soon as she came forward, I saw a flash of light, and he was gone. It was that fast. It was that easy. I've never had a crossing that has happened that quick or that easy. He was so anxious to get to her and her energy. It happened so fast, and it was so wonderful. And on his exit, I felt his love for her. My client also felt this love, and we both were uplifted. I hadn't felt well. I had like a little bit of a stomach flu for 3 days before I went and did this. My client also not feeling well, and we both got energized from this infusion of love and kindness and thankfulness and prayerfulness that he kind of imparted to us on his exit. And it was just wonderful and lovely. And people ask me sometimes why I do what I do. That's one of the reasons I do what I do. It was just so nice to be part and be privileged enough to have this gift where I can just, and it's not me. Again, I'm told what to do and how to move. I'm just kind of an instrument that kind of works to help move people in this way. And I thank God for that every day. And appreciate the fact that my clients put their faith and trust in me to be able to bring that to them. So let me see if there's any more questions before we end this evening. But I want to thank you all for today. And again, next week, we're going to talk about this in a first person, where you can hear somebody who actually went through this type of activity and had this for years happen to them. Let me kind of scroll through here real quick. Let's see. Wendy, thanks. Carol Ann, thank you. Yes, it was a beautiful story. And it just should, again, be in part on everybody. I wanted to end it with that story tonight because love is eternal. And when you love someone, however you need to be with them, love finds a way. And in this case, they were destined to be together. And I don't know if they will be on the other side, but it was enough to pull them together, enough for a very smooth and lovely transition for him. And let's see. Anybody else here with a question before I go? John, Julie, thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. Again, there's a whole world of spirituality out there. Join us every week here at 7 p.m. on the Enlightened World Network and Enlightened Living channel to go over more. And if you have any story suggestions or things that you want me to talk about on air, please email me. You can email me at rapainley, that's rapainley @gmail.com. Or you can reach me through the Enlightened World Network. It'll get back to me. And again, look for Rosie Shapiro's event on August 2nd, I believe it is, at 7 p.m. Please pull her up on rosieshapiro.com. And you can also please watch my husband tomorrow on his debut show. It's going to be Mindful Money Manners with Mark Bianchi, and he'll be on at noon tomorrow. So thank you all for watching. And I'm going to try and make a graceful exit here since this is my first time doing this. And so I need my glasses to do that. And let's see if I can take us off. So thank you again all for watching. I appreciate you very much, and have a good evening. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye. Be blessed.